I'm Indra.
And I'm Amanda.
And we'd like to welcome you to The Messy Middle Matters. Hey, Amanda, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Indra?
I'm good. Once again, we're going to be talking about something near and dear to our hearts, the craft. That is the backbone to yours and my careers. Project, program, operations management.
Yeah, all the things management.
all the things, all the get stuff done stuffers. Yes. And so before we dig in, not everyone is as deeply entrenched in this community. They've probably heard the terms. I don't want to say definitely, but probably heard the terms. But there is something that the people in the craft, there's some nuance that people within the craft may understand that people who are not in the craft may not. So let me go through some definitions. So for the purposes of our conversation, and this is just a broad working definition of it, project managers are people who are responsible for planning and executing and delivering individual projects within a defined scope, timeline, and budget. So you can imagine I need to have a new checkout workflow for my website, or I need to put on this particular event for 20 people. Like they're usually not overly complex. They're usually pretty contained, and they have a clear set of deliverables that are going on with them. So that's project managers.
Yeah. A project has a beginning and an end.
It has a beginning and an end. Programs. So this is where a lot of people confuse the words project and program managers, which drives both of us a little wacky. But a program manager oversees a group of related projects, a program, to ensure that they align with broader business objectives. So you could think about this as like you have an app that you're creating. You might have one team doing that checkout workflow because you'd have a shopping component to it. You have another team that's worried about making sure that the videos get served properly, and they're working on that. And that's a different project. And we have a third team that's worried about all the other the navigation of the applications. You have 3 projects, and the program manager makes sure that all those things are working well. They're going to end at the right time so that you can launch your app on time. So that's a program. And that's one example of a type of a program. Anything else that I can add to make sure that that's clear for our listeners?
Yeah, there's security and compliance requirements,
Yes.
that are not being worked on in any of these projects, but as an overall business goal, we have to ensure this. So a program manager would be aware of those requirements and ensure that all of those requirements are met so that we can launch the thing.
Yes.
That's the only thing I would add.
I love that. So they're worried about all the projects that are going on and anything else that's necessary for that thing to be successful, whether it's working with partners or whatever it might be. Like they have their eyes on everything. They have their eyes on the big picture. So program, big picture, project, really set scope and really set focus. And that's for delivering things and putting things out into the world, right? Operations managers are a third flavor, which have a very similar skill set, right? So operations managers, and there's various career stages for each one of these, but let's just keep it pretty simple. But operations managers ensure that the day-to-day functions of a business or a team run smoothly. So this will be making sure everyone's laptops work, make sure that there's an all hands that's going on, make sure that the budget is being balanced, make sure that, just anything that needs that someone else isn't taking care of that makes the organization function, whether it's a team or a company, gets done. Like those are the operations people. And so for the purposes of our podcast, we're going to call this group of folks PMs. So just for the scope of these 30 minutes-ish that you're with us, PM is project or program manager or an ops person. Just know that we're going to use that for them. Because God, heaven knows that that word PM is yet another one of those terms that needs to be clarified all the time.
Right. Because PM could also mean product manager. It could also mean portfolio manager. It can mean prime minister. It can mean, private message. It could there are just so many things PM can stand for.
And it's so funny whenever somebody says, "Oh, the PM will take care of that." I'm like, who? I'm
Right.
like,
What do you mean by
they're
PM?
like, well, that'll be, like Jorge. I'm like, that's great. Fantastic. Because I'm also a PM or this one's also a PM. I just wanted to make sure we knew what was going on. And they'll stare at me like I've got like six heads. I'm like, I would rather be clear on what we mean, but so that everyone knows, you don't need to stare at yourselves or each other with six heads as you're listening to this. PM is project, program, or operations manager for the duration of this podcast. And the last bonus term that we're going to throw in there for just because I'm sure we're going to mention it somewhere along the way. And this is courtesy of our friends at Generalist World that we're going to talk about probably a little bit too, but a generalist. So a generalist is a multi-skilled, adaptable, fast learner who can jump into any role and make things happen. So I think that most program managers, a lot of project managers, most program managers, and probably a lot of operations managers are generalists, right?
Yeah, they're the get stuff doneers, like you said at the top of the episode, right? Like they
Yeah,
get stuff done.
yeah. And the reason that we're talking about this topic now is not because we're passionate about the topic, which we are, but because we're seeing so many organizations right now downsize their get stuff doneer teams, right? All their PMs, the number of tremendously talented, highly qualified PMs that are out on the market. Some of them specialize in specific like types of projects. Some of them don't. Like there, it doesn't matter. It's there. There's an awful lot of them that are on the market right now, and it's because of budgetary constraints. But I also believe that the there these cuts are exceptionally short sighted. These,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Agreed. I personally know so many program manager type people who are on the market right now. And I agree that it's a short-sighted move for these companies to eliminate these teams.
yeah.
Um, because the work doesn't disappear.
No, but what's happened is like these folks are undervalued in general, but what's happened is a few different things. One is that the proliferation of SaaS, software as a service, online programs that um, can handle project management types of things. I'm thinking of your Monday.coms. I'm thinking of your Trellos. I'm thinking of your Asanas. Those tools, some of those tools are great. Some of those tools drive me crazy, but we're not, this podcast is not about that. But what those tools do, Amanda's laughing. For those of you not watching the video versions, Amanda's laughing because she's heard my rants about them. But the reason that those tools are really good, but the marketing materials for those tools are like, oh, your teams can self-organize. Oh, your teams can handle this by themselves. But what it overlooks is the ability to, yes, they handle systematically things really well. Yes, they send prompts. Yes, they send alerts. But that's checklist management. That's checklists and reminders. And a good PM is their value is not in checklists. I mean, yes, they will create checklists, make sure those checklists are done. Everyone agrees on what's on the checklist, but their value is not in that checklist. It's in so many other things.
Yeah, just like insert any other job title here is a craft.
Yeah.
Program management is a craft.
Yeah.
Like there are people like you and I who this is our craft. This is what we do. This is what we do well. This is what we have experience in.
And the tools help us do it better, but they do not replace people who do this. And I think that that's the thing that a lot of these people who are, I've been that person facing budgetary constraints. So I'm not casting shade. This intent is to share wisdom so that the next time they can make a more informed choice. Because it's the management of stuff, like, because if you don't have a person who is tasked with the get stuff doneing. I mean, I think we gave a whole bunch of really good examples as we were going through our definitions, but you don't have somebody watching for all those things. Someone on your team whose day job is software engineering marketing professional, copywriting, designing, whatever it might be, winds up having to do their day job and project management stuff and not necessarily do it that well because it's not A, it's not their core competency. And B, it's not what gets them in flow. It's not the thing that's not the reason they joined your company to work there. They're in all likelihood. There are some people who would enjoy it, but in all likelihood, they'll find it to be an annoying thing that keeps them from being able to do their day job, which they love.
Yeah. And I would even add that someone who has to take time and capacity away from their day job to do project management type things, like that is going to be a detriment to themselves and to the team because they're now splitting time between their day job, the thing that brings them joy, the thing that, they're really good at, their craft.
Yep.
And they have to now spend however many hours ensuring that, all the pieces are being orchestrated, all the things are being done, all the dots are being connected, all of that glue work that a lot of PM type people do is happening.
100%. And then what happens then, the cascading effects, let's follow this through. What happens then is A, we've already talked about how they're frustrated. B, we've talked about how their team is frustrated with them because they can't deliver the way at the capacity that they used to be able to deliver. Let's say they were able to, I'm going to choose it's a terrible metric, but it's a metric nonetheless. They used to every single cycle, they'd be able to deliver 100 lines of code. And now they're only able to deliver 50. And their team's like, why can't you deliver 100 still? Like, what's wrong? Like, and they get frustrated and they get resentful and they start lashing out at the person. And then, it comes a quarterly review and the person's boss is like, hey, like you only delivered 150 lines of code per cycle, and so like you're not doing your job very well. And they're like, but there's all this other stuff that needs to be done. And then you can imagine the frustration and the poor review of the person, and the person leaves, and then like it's just, and then you lose that into that IP. And anyone who's been on a hiring cycle knows that it's so much more important to retain your good talent than it is to go and hunt for talent, because finding a new person in your best case scenario takes 2 months. So like the thing that so these are the downstream costs. We've gotten off topic, but the point is of getting off topic is that fact that this decision about cutting costs and getting rid of your get stuff doneer folks has not only stopped you from getting stuff done and slowed the progress of your project, you're now in a recruiting cycle because you got to start hiring someone because they wound up doing a project management job instead of like a software engineering job because they got frustrated and want to go somewhere else where they could actually do their job.
Yeah, it just creates this snowball effect that I don't think a lot of people realize or talk about.
No, and I think that there is like, and let's be clear, and I think we should go into this too, like not all PMs are created equal. In my lived experience, it's like, really, you don't say, right? Yeah. In my experience, there's 2 types. There's the checklist managers, and then there's the get stuff doneers. Like, and it's more for me, when I categorize people in my mind in these 2 different camps, it's their intrinsic reward system. Right. There are the people who want to make others succeed. And those to me are the get stuff doneers. Sometimes when they're really early in their career and they're really early on in the craft, they might be focusing on checklists, but their goal, their motivation is in the get stuff doneing. And then there's the people who are happy as clam, creating checklists, marking things red, amber, and green, red, yellow, green as a status of the health of the particular project or the particular item, sending out follow-up emails and creating status reports. Those to me are the checklist PMs. There's checklist PMs and get stuff done PMs.
Right. And the checklist PMs are, the reward is, am I done with this project? Has this project, has it been shipped? Done? Cool. I'm going to move on to my next thing.
Their intrinsic reward is literally in marking off that checkbox. Like you can just watch it in their eyes when they check it off, like they feel such a sense of relief. Right. And I think that when you're hitting these budgetary constraints, I think that it is smart to say, okay, let me look at my talent, my get stuff done talent, my PM talent, and say, who's helping me advance the organization? who's here. It's nice to have those checklisters, right, when you have the budgets, right? They but like do that critical analysis of those two particular talent pools. Look at what your objective business goals are, and then if you have the time and capacity, check in with the leaders of the teams that those PMs support, because those are the people who are going to understand whether or not, what the impact of losing that person might be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It, just going back to the get stuff doners, right? And like the impact of these PM type people. It's not just the checklists, right? It's, aligning teams, it's unblocking the teams, it's spotting risks and raising the risks early and often. Like because of that, back to our definitions, because of that strategic view, the big picture view, your program manager might have insight to something that, you as your, that core team working on that one thing may not have.
Right. And you want your teams to have that focus. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason that they can focus is because they know there's somebody who's watching for everything and is giving them air cover.
The air cover is so real.
It's very real. It's very real. And so like I think, yeah, I don't know. I think I've said an awful lot. There's so many other areas that we can go into.
Yeah, I think we've talked a lot about what what the skills of these
Mm-hmm.
these PMs are,
Yeah.
right? Can we talk about how like why are I'm going to say why are
Yeah.
we undervalued? Why are we always the ones who may be first on the chopping block when it comes to layoff time, right?
It's a great question. And I would say that it's our own doing. I would even say it's our own doing as a collective, not as individuals, but as a collective. I think it's our own doing because we haven't done the best job at educating the world on what we do, how we do it, why we do it, because most of the best project program folks are not the ones who are seeking the spotlight. They're not the ones who feel the need to be on stage unless it's really to help support someone else, right? They're not they're not the ones who are like vying for people's attention. Like I think that we are the people who love being in the back room helping to help others be their best selves. And what I'm trying to do in and part of it is this podcast, right? Like you've joined me in this podcast specifically, but even in the thought leadership that I write or whatever it is helping to give language to the things that people do, give value to the things that people do, and find measurement systems, not only just talking about them so that people understand the difference between a project manager and a program manager. And I've got a story about that one, but also understand how to measure it, how to evaluate it, how to recognize that what's good and what's bad. Because I'll tell my favorite story with project and program management. I was at WeWork, and I was one of the one of the more seasoned people in the get stuff done world, right? And so inevitably, whenever there was on a regular basis, I would have somebody who had been given the title program manager find me over Slack and like, hey, can I talk to you? And the number of times that this person was fresh out of college, had never done this job before, and had been hired into the role program manager was quite surprising. And this is not to throw any one organization under a bus. Like this is just happens to be the story I'm telling. I could tell this story probably about every single company and organization I've worked with, because the people who are hiring project and program managers don't understand the difference between these things. And it dilutes the value of, the seniority. I might actually publish in our show notes, I'll drop a link to a slide that I have that explains like the career progression of basic project program operations stuff that is easy for any human being to understand. Oh, that's the person that talks to my stakeholders and figures out stuff. And oh, that's a version of the title that would work. Okay, cool. Like we don't talk about it enough to the people outside of our craft. That was a really big long rant. Oof.
But I agree with you though. Like it is our own doing. Because you're right. All of the really good program managers I know are like we're all in this craft because we don't want the credit. We don't want the spotlight. We want to be behind the scenes. We want to be the stage hands moving things around to make the scene look good.
Yes.
Right. But we don't need to be, in the spotlight front and center being like, hey, this launched because of me and my organization and like my herding the cats, right? Like, no, that just reminds me of a story when, I was doing like a meet and greet with a new hire in another department. And they asked me, oh, so, how often do you talk to customers? And I was like, no, this is not customer facing. Like if I wanted to talk to customers, like if I really wanted to talk to customers, I would be a product manager or a
customer
product
experience.
Yeah. Like I like to be behind the scenes here. Like I like to be the orchestrator of the thing. I don't need to be the face of the thing.
Yeah. And I think that's like and I think we need to use some more of those metaphors. Like if I think about it, when I get moments that I get excited at the Grammys are when a performer brings their producer on stage. Because do I have the same skill set as a producer? No, because I'm not musically inclined in that way. But it's the same kind of thing because they know that producer is that partner that gets the best out of them, that helps them to shape that song into something, or that album or whatever it might be into something. I loved your example of, the stage hands who are behind the scene, or, like there's so many people. Like if you think about a Broadway show, I know you and I enjoy a Broadway show or two, like the people who you never see, who are required to make that production happen every night. That's your program and project management. And, the more seasoned they are, the more likely they are to be able to point out pitfalls and risks and the things that you'll overlook. And
if we're continuing the Broadway show,
sure, let's do it.
Right. Like, oh man, that floorboard is a little squeaky. Like, hey, everyone, ignore that one. I'm going to put a piece of tape on it.
Yeah.
Like avoid that one.
Right. And then not only will you do that for that performance, you're going to work with the appropriate union staff to get the right person in to repair it so that people can stop having to avoid that one little spot that's creating a squeak and throwing off the sound for the whatever it might be for the microphones.
Exactly.
Yeah. And this is not a skill that comes naturally or organically for anyone. The talking, like I think that the first step in being able to share the stories of the PM with the rest of the world is practicing those stories in community and finding community. And so what's really great is there are some, and it's amazing considering how long organizations like PMI have been around, Program Management Institute have been around. Like there haven't really been a lot of really good supportive communities out there up until relatively recently, at least not that I've found. And the ones that I've found, there's two that come to mind. One is the Design Ops Assembly. The design operations world is the get stuff doners of UX and UI design. Right. And that term got coined in, I think, 2017, if I remember correctly, my dates. And what created, and shout out to Rosenfeld Media for getting that conversation started and for starting the first conference. But that first conference was the catalyst to community creation. And that community is really, really tremendous, really, really rich, really, really supportive of each other. So if you're in or around the design world, highly recommend the Design Ops Assembly and getting your way into that community. There's a rich Slack community. It's really really good. The other one that comes to mind, also relatively new, Millie's last name I'm never going to remember right now, but Millie, she's out of the UK, started an organization called Generalist World. And so that is, we mentioned them a little bit at the top of the episode. And they have also created a community around generalists, get stuff doneers in general, in a very broad sense of the term. So you're thinking of your chiefs of staff. We haven't talked about chiefs of staff at all, right? Like, but so it's broader than just the folks that we were talking about on this episode. So those are the things I highly recommend seeking out, finding community, whether it's one of those two. We'll make sure that their links are in our show notes. Those are that's that. And if you can't find any of those, find your advocates and supporters in your organization. Find your allies. Like this is it's a classic move, and it's a classic move because it works. Find your allies in your organization who can be your proponents and your advocates when you're not there.
Yeah, there's the community piece and the like everyone in the community understands what everyone in the community does, right? So like that's the community and like the internal support piece. But I think that piece of finding your advocates and getting people to market for you a little bit, right? People who get it, people who understand the value of working with a good PM, like get those people to evangelize. Is that the word I'm looking for? Like
evangelism with a lowercase c, with a lowercase c.
Right. To market the value of a PM. Because like the number of times I've started a new job and, done one of these meet and greets with people on the team, very often people are like, so what exactly do you do? And how is that different from another PM, like another product manager or a project manager, or insert other thing here?
Yeah. And I think you made me think of another specific to this moment in time. What I've seen, the trend that you see over the course of time is that when we're in a market boom, when the job market is more on the side of people, the workers versus the companies, there's more demand for work out there. What you'll see is there will be consolidation and departments of program managers, of operations folks, and there'll be functions that create teams, and those are the ones that when the times get tight and lean, those are the things that get dissolved. And when you're savvy, and you can't always pull this off, right? So, but just for those who have not done this before, haven't thought about it, a friend of mine who is in this PM world, recently her organization went through a whole restructuring. Not necessarily a downsizing, but a restructuring, which has the same types of behaviors where everyone's like a little bit on edge because you don't know if there is a cut that's going to happen right afterwards, right? After that restructuring, after the deck chairs are shuffled, like where did everyone land, and do we need these people? That person was working on what we were talking through is how they're creating their strategies of creating their alliances with the people that they support, so that if the team does get dissolved for whatever reason, that person might be able to absorb her headcount and her role to move that forward. So like there's different strategies, different ways, but like you got to work all the tactics. You got to be constantly talking about what you do. It's not comfortable because it wasn't what we wanted to do, but we need to learn how to be good at talking about ourselves. We need to be good at starting to thump our chests a little bit more and brag a little bit more about what we do. Like this, stop the self-deprecating stuff, which I'm very exceptionally good at, right? Like stop that and say, no, I did this. I brought this value. This is what I did and how I contributed. Like there are the moments where you can elevate the team, but don't do it at your own expense, because when times are lean, you're going to need all that PR that you've done and you built up and that goodwill you built up to make sure that you can succeed. So
yeah, step into the spotlight a bit. I'm guilty of stepping back from the spotlight, right? But yeah, I have learned step into the spotlight, get your Grammy winning artist to pull you on stage with them.
Yeah. I mean, Taylor Swift's always up there with Jack Alton, right? Like it's always there. like it's, and that's not the only one, but like think of being a famous producer. Think famous music producer. Try and aspire for that. You like find your T Swift, find your Beyonce, find your whatever. I don't know. But anyway, Amanda, any other last thoughts? I think we gave everybody enough, a lot of good stuff here.
Oh, yeah. I think we gave everyone a lot to think about.
Yeah. Well,
we are very passionate about this.
We hope that our listeners are too, or at least they learned something. And we hope that y'all will join us next time when we talk about another topic from the messy middle. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
If today's episode hit home or just made you laugh, you might love our merch. We've got 3 collections. Don't Make Me Regret, in honor of the sweatshirt that started it all. Words Matter, inspired by our most popular episode. And Embrace the Messy to celebrate the beautiful chaos. Head to shop.themessymiddlematters.com to take a look. Everything's print on demand, so be sure to double check your size before ordering. But if anything goes wrong with the printing, our vendor will work with you to make it right. Looking for a different cut or size? Email us at podcast@themessymiddlematters.com so that we can explore the option. Thanks for making the Messy Middle matter.